Okay, welcome. It's Monday, 12 December, year of our Lord 2022. We are jammed tonight. We had both Kash, Patel, and Colonel Derek Harvey together. It's been an explosive 72 hours on Twitter, not just Twitter. Revelations about where these investigations going, exclusive to the New York Post from Comer. A big kind of a throwdown by Kevin McCarthy yesterday. I think it was a Maria Bartiromo about the 51 intelligence officers. You got Elon Musk now understanding he bought a crime scene. So much to go there. I've also got Tiffany Justice and a concerned mom about UNESCO. Also, people are realizing now one of the most powerful issues out there is parental rights. And this is because they're coming after the American family, weaponizing the children. Get to all that. Jason, in fact, we had Jason Jones about Our Lady of Guadalupe. We're going to roll that to tomorrow morning because it's so packed. Big, huge, multi-million people in Mexico yesterday. We're going to get to all this, but I got to go to Todd Bensman. Ask Todd to step away from something he was working on. Todd, I know you've been on top of this, and Burquam and everybody, but there's a story now exploding like out of nowhere on the border. In particular, it's like Mexican authorities and the cartel are like openly working with each other to actually get more of these caravans across, I guess, prior to the 21st of December when Title 42 comes off. Tell us what's going on. The footage looks incredible. You've got 1,000-person caravan, I think, from Nicaragua is up there. They're talking about Mexican authorities are now openly working to kind of, channel these people through with as little resistance as possible. Is this a new story, or is this an old story that's just people are now just realizing what's happening?
All right, there's a couple things going on here, so bear with me for a minute, because the border can get a little bit complicated. So the El Paso sector has been popping now for about 3 months. This is not new. The number of immigrants being apprehended, aliens being caught crossing the border, has been skyrocketing in that sector since August. And just to give you an idea, they had somewhere in the neighborhood of 30,000 for most of the year. And then all of a sudden in September, they apprehended about 49,000. And then that jumped to 53, 55,000. But the gotaways is the real story, because El Paso has been a gotaway nightmare. Tens of thousands, 50,000 gotaways have been just passing through that sector, running, gunning. Texas DPS has surged massive forces there.
Hang on 1 second. I just want to know for a podcast and radio audience, and this is why you've got to go get the show and get the clips and watch. Right now it's Todd Bensman speaking, and if Memphis, you can go back to that. You don't have to have me. You can just have Todd. The footage is stunning. I mean, the footage just blows you away of what's happening on our southern border, Todd. I know we've had El Nino. We focused a lot in El Paso. That's where I built the first phase of the wall right up the side of that mountain, because Border Patrol wanted to stop the cartels, and we built the wall. I mean, that sector has always been a problem. This footage is absolutely stunning. I mean, Todd, if this is going on now and Mexican authorities are working, I mean, what's going to happen on the 21st? Are we anywhere prepared for the tidal wave of humanity? They're talking about 15 or 20,000 a day that's prepared. If this is what we got now, what's going to happen on the 21st?
Right. So there are two things happening. One is that there's a shift from the Rio Grande Valley. The cartels down there were charging too much. They were too abusive. So they started to shift over to the El Paso sector, where the Juarez cartel is cheaper and they're not beating people up as much. Okay. That's the last 3 months. The Rio Grande numbers have plummeted at the same exact time as the El Paso numbers have gone up. Then you have the Mexican military bringing caravans of immigrants from the far south on their Guatemalan border in buses. They're saying they're rescuing. The New York Post had a story out today saying that the military rescued these 2,500 immigrants that crossed today and delivered them over to safety to the Americans. But I'm just highly skeptical. In fact, I was laughing earlier at that whole story. There was a caravan of this size in Tapachula a week and a half ago that they all just processed with buses, the military, and I believe they brought these people up from Tapachula to just get rid of them because the Americans are taking them. And I think that's what these guys are right here that are in your camera. But the gotaways, there are 50,000 gotaways that have just in the last few months, cat and mouse insanity over there in the El Paso district, who were escaping Title 42. But now that Title 42 is ending, they will no longer have to do that. And I believe that you'll see more of this, the turn-ins, thousands of people just turning themselves in. So there were these two different things that are happening at about the same time, is what I'm told and what I believe is happening. I do think Title 42 is going to be a big game changer. We're already seeing them. There's Mexican media. I'm monitoring the Mexican media. I've got Google Translate. And I'm reading all this Mexican media that they are on the way, man. They are on the march through the Darien, through Central America, through Mexico. And I believe that Mexico is just going to be moving them through, because why wouldn't they? Of course they move them.
Well, and they're
through.
Getting paid. Yeah.
And I mean,
everyone for their own safety, but
sure.
But they're all getting paid. Todd, how do people get to the book, and how they find out, how they get to your writings and social media? Because you're putting stuff up nonstop now. That people, if you want the immersive experience, you got to get into the loop with Todd Bensman.
Well, tomorrow morning I've got a big piece running in the Daily Mail, so you can check that out. I'm at T Bensman at Getter, and Todd.Bensman at Truth Social. And the book is Overrun. That is available for pre-order right now on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or any of those places.
We'll check the Daily Mail. I'll talk to you later. Maybe we get you on. I would love to have you on with one of these big Daily Mail exclusives you're doing. They're so fantastic. Since the Daily Mail watches War Room for all the best news and scoops, we're honored to have that. Todd, great job. Very shocking. The footage is unbelievable. I want to thank Memphis. This footage is unbelievable. It's only going to get worse on the few days before Christmas. Merry Christmas, Rio Grande Valley. Merry Christmas, citizens in El Paso, Texas. Todd Bensman, thank you very much, brother. Appreciate it. The revelations over the last couple of days, 72 hours, have been nothing short of stunning. And it's not about just suppression of President Trump. Taibbi's title was the removal of President Trump. I'm really honored to have Devin Nunes, who's a patriot and a hero, and ran the Intelligence Committee when we controlled the House under Paul Ryan, but was handcuffed by Paul Ryan for really doing what he knew had to be done. His two right-hand guys, his general counsel, was Kash Patel. His right-hand man, kind of his top guy, was Colonel Derek Harvey. I've got both of them. Kash, I want to start with you. Kash, I think people are shocked the more that they just come out. And I shouldn't say shocked. We know what went on, and this audience knows what went on. But to the brazen nature that the intelligence community, that FBI and DOJ and other members of the intelligence community and because the Twitter people are so unsophisticated. I mean, it's really like seeing a college dorm. Let's be honest. This is not a group of sophisticated people of the world. And to know that they had this platform, of which even Elon Musk now calls a crime scene. He calls it a crime scene. This is not War Room or Paso, not us calling it a crime scene. He's tweeting out it's a crime scene. Get us up to speed on your, since we left you on Friday, your assessment of what's happened over this weekend, sir.
Hey, it's great to be back with you, Stephen. Look, when I ran the Russiagate investigation for Chairman Nunes with great warriors like Derek Harvey, we uncovered, and I'm going to give you some good news and then some bad news. What we uncovered was all the corruption at the FBI, at DOJ, at the mainstream media, and the Democratic Party. And I'm glad now that Elon Musk is putting all this stuff out there, but this is why I keep saying all roads lead to Russiagate. It is the same operation that a private enterprise is running with the FBI and DOJ. And I'm glad so many more people are forced to listen because of the big platform that you and War Room have and Elon has, and are finally forcing people to look at the suppression, the intentional malfeasance, and likely breaking of laws by the folks at Twitter. And here's the thing they have in common with the government gangsters at the FBI that ran Russiagate. They never thought they would get caught. They were so arrogant, they would write it down freely, just like the FBI government gangsters did during Russiagate. And we found the documents. We found the receipts, as you say. And now Taibbi and company are putting out the receipts. But here's the problem, Steve. We know they censored Donald Trump. We know they rigged an election. We know the players, Roth, Vijay Gadda, Dorsey. I haven't seen one email, and I've been challenging them to do this, that shows the communications between the FBI and Twitter headshed. It exists. And if it doesn't exist, I've been calling on media companies like Epoch Times, where I host my show, send FOIAs to FBI. Twitter is not a classified operation. Every meeting every FBI agent had with Twitter and Vijay Gadda and Roth around these times is documented. Then we will learn the depths of government involvement to break the law and violate free speech. Like I said, I'm really happy this information is finally getting out there. But
hang on. I want to take this to another level, though. They're investigative journalists, and Taibbi and Barry Weiss and these Weiss, these are terrific investigative journalists, and many of those have come from more liberal mainstream media sources. You and Derek Harvey are not investigative journalists. You are hammers that understand, you're a former prosecutor. You have spent your career, your last gig was chief of staff over the Department of Defense. Derek Harvey is a legendary individual in Washington, D.C. You guys have dedicated your life to service to your country, not as journalists and not as guys at the War Room or Matt Taibbi or the Intercept or places like this, as good as some of those places may be. You guys are professionals that are in the belly of the beast, and you saw things, you knew things that were not right. That's why if Paul Ryan had the back of Devin Nunes, remember, when the history of this gets written, and it's going to be written very quickly because in January and February, these investigations are going to ramp up. Paul Ryan didn't have Nunes back. He kind of pulled him off, right, of the investigation at its most important because of potential conflicts, and put Trey Gowdy, his lapdog, in charge. You and Harvey are professionals. And as professionals, I have to ask you, if you got to Elon Musk or his senior people, you would be able to do things and expose things and see things that even the best and smartest guy like a Matt Taibbi are just not going to miss. Am I correct in that assumption?
Look, I think it's right. We have a different background. We're not investigative journalists, Steve. So I think you're right. But here's the thing that the American people need to understand. We exposed that corruption in Russiagate. It's the same actors in the same cabal and the same groups at FBI that were authorized to meet by Chris Wray and Bill Barr with the Twitter headshed. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to come in there and say, why aren't we finding and exposing these documents? What I'm saying is the promulgation of information is great. But the problem we have is right now we have the momentum. Right now we have the American public listening. And we have to drop the hammer on the FBI's involvement, because if we do it in 2 or 3 months from now, they're going to come back and say, hey, that's a War Room conspiracy. That's Kash. He's crazy. We have to tee it up before Congress gets the gavels in January that the FBI was in on it. We know they were. They've admitted under oath to being there with Twitter. So why can't we just release the Twitter documents with the FBI, with Vijay Gadda and Roth? That's my biggest ask of Elon Musk. You don't have to be a rocket scientist, literally, or send spaceships to the moon to do it. You just have to release them. And the question I have for everybody, as good as they are, is why haven't we seen that yet?
I want to go before I let you go, because your discernment and judgment during the toughest days of the Russia hoax, and your ability to kind of, one of the things of people as leaders is keeping your head about you when everybody else is losing theirs. When a guy like Kash Patel uses the term government gangsters, it means something. It's not just some person throwing it out there. Talk to me about that. In your investigation from House Intel. Remember, Kash has got the highest security clearances in the country can actually give. When you say government gangsters, you actually mean that. You mean people that have on a daily basis just break the law, because the whole purpose is to keep the apparatus moving forward, to keep the apparatus in charge. Am I incorrect in that assumption?
No, it's a term that I came out with. It's actually the term of it's the name of my adult book that's coming out in like February. But where basically I list every government gangster that we ran into in Russiagate onwards. And if you go through them, the Gina Haspels, the Chris Rays, the Rod Rosensteins, the Bill Barrs, these people, Peter Strzok, his lover, and all these other people, James Baker, these people were in positions of senior leadership in government, and they hijacked the service of this country for their own personal political gain. And I lay out with specificity why these guys should be called government gangsters and what they have done to destroy this country. It's not hyperbole. Go back and read the Nunes memo. Go back and watch The Plot Against the President. Or in the spring, go read my book, Government Gangsters, which is out on pre-sale now. The reason I came up with this term is because it's so shocking, their conduct, that it can only be compared to Elliot Ness and Al Capone. What they have done against the American people in violation of their oath of office is destroy the Department of Justice, make the United States military woke. And you just reported what's going on our borders, one example, and just weakened America across the globe because they put their own egos ahead of the Americans people they serve, and they think those offices, the FBI and DOJ and DOD, et cetera, exist to serve their own ego and their own brand. And this is why they are qualified as government gangsters. There's a list. I'm going to name every single one of them in my book by name. It's probably going to get to be about 100 people or so, but you have to call these people out, and we have to educate the American public to do it. And this moment in time with Elon Musk giving out all this information is our one chance at getting it all back, educating people on Russiagate and why Russiagate is still prevalent today, and why all roads at this Twitter revelations lead right back to Russiagate. They're running the same playbook with a private enterprise to destroy the American fabric of conservatism because they don't like it. And that is why those people need to go to prison.
How do they get to, we're going to have Kash back on this week to talk in detail about what that means. Kash, how do people get to your writings? You've got the children's book, and I'm telling people the children's book is a pretty good primer when you read it to the kids and grandkids, a pretty good primer if you're not into the details. How do people get to your writings? How do they get to your books?
Yeah, I exist one place on Truth Social at Kash, Truth Social at Kash, KSH, and then plotagainsttheking.com. You're right. I keep telling people over and over, and yes, I have a self-interest in this, but Plot Against the King is the #1 selling children's book in America. It's Russiagate for kids and young adults and grandparents and anyone who wants to get caught up in 22 fun pages. We did a sequel on election integrity with Dinesh D'Souza called Plot Against the King, 2,000 Mules. Right now, we got a Christmas special, plotagainsttheking.com. Both books signed by me, Christmas ornaments, Christmas mugs, all at a big discount for the War Room. Go to plotagainsttheking.com and get those stocking stuff today. You can still get them in time. And I agree, Steve's right. If you want to teach kids about our constitutional republic, you got it in a book. If you want to teach kids about Russiagate and why what's going on at Twitter right now is so important, you got to go read plotagainsttheking.com. We call them the heralds in the books for a reason, because they are the fake news and we have to defeat them.
We had Charlie Kirk talking about Dante's Inferno, the Ninth Circle of Hell, and what we're talking about is this: when you see these government gangsters, what's happened in the American Republic is like at the end of the Roman Republic and really the beginning of the Empire. A Praetorian Guard that was considered themselves kind of the elite, they're the betters, and they started to make decisions on who's going to rule and who's not going to rule. This is what you saw in the collapse of the late Republic, the collapse of the Republic and the rise of the Empire, and the Empire that got so corrupt and tried to crush Christianity. Kash Patel, honored to have you on here. Look forward to having you. This is your moment, brother. And I'm telling people, 2023, whether it's Naomi Wolf's book, Kash Patel's book, this thing is coming to a head now for a massive confrontation in the nation's capital. One side's going to win, one side's going to lose. And by the way, when I say confrontation, I mean confrontation in the halls of Congress, in the committee rooms, in the hearing rooms, where we've got the receipts, and we are going to win. Kash Patel, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve. Have a great night.
I had Colonel Derek Harvey. I was going to get Harvey on for his geostrategic. He's one of the smartest. He's a legend in Washington, D.C., and was on the House Intelligence for years, and then came after a career in the U.S. Army, then came to the White House with us. But I gotta just pick your brain, Colonel, about what you've seen, these revelations you've seen, and particularly Brother, you know the administrative state better than any living human being. What has been what the revelations that happened over the last 72 hours? Put it in perspective for us.
Well, Steve, I want to take a step back just for a second here. And this is really hard for people to grasp, to understand what's really going on, because there are so many interconnected stories going on here with China, the Biden administration, the Securities Exchange Commission, failing to do things that would protect American economic interests and the like. But I think back to how hard it is to understand ISIS and Al-Qaeda and the networks that we're fighting across the Middle East just a few short years ago. And when we got the Abbottabad papers that had all that treasure trove of data that was from Osama bin Laden's lair, the CIA analysts went through it and they triaged it, they analyzed it, but they didn't have the right people really looking at it and dissecting it. If you don't have the right people that have the background and the knowledge to understand the words and, the synonyms and, how these people talk and the code that they use, you're not going to understand what's really going on. And it's the same thing here. We've not only got the FBI and DOJ and CIA and others involved here in working with not just Twitter, but almost certainly with Facebook, Instagram, and others. But it's also the DNC. It's also Perkins Coie, which was an operational arm for the DNC that was used to work with GPS fusion and to dig up dirt, or to fabricate dirt, I should say, on Republican candidates, especially the Trump administration. And they were part and parcel of the Russia hoax. If you don't know this information, it's very hard, if you're going through the Twitter files, to know what you're really looking at, because it may look innocuous. But that's why you need people that have the deep knowledge about this background, like Kash, myself, and others, that might be able to point the way a little bit better. It would be helpful. So I think I'd start there as just an overall comment about where we're at. There's so much more to find out, and I think people focused are trying to dissemble and say this is a private company. It goes to the heart of our protections, our liberties, freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom from coercion, etc. And the U.S. government was behind it. Now, not necessarily the Trump administration, because some of this stuff happened while Trump was in charge, but it was the bureaucratic state, the administrative state, that has been out of control.
By the way, Andrew Clyde, Congressman Clyde, who's one of the guys to come out as one of these guys that's a no vote for McCarthy, came out. He's put a bill forward that talks about social media and specifically says in the Constitution, you can't do indirectly what the Constitution prohibits you from doing directly. That's the relationship with Facebook. Twitter, they're just adjuncts. They're just instrumentality to government, intelligence community and law enforcement community actors. Is that essentially your argument?
That is exactly right. They were doing the bidding of the government, and that's one of the things that, the committees are going to get at. I'm sure, Congressman Jordan's all over that one. I hope that they've provided to Facebook and others the preserve the records and the information, just like what's at Twitter, because those are going to be the next step. So we better have that type of information protected legally with formal letters from the House Republicans. But I'm worried that we don't necessarily have the right investigators and the partisan, aggressive characters that are going to be willing to dig. And when you're leading these types of investigations and when you're an investigator working on the staff, you are going to be attacked yourselves. That's how the gangsters on the other side work. They will get people in the media, they'll get people on Twitter, they'll get business interests, maybe even the IRS to go after you. Okay, so all of these people have to be willing to do the hard, right things to fight for our country.
I want to go back. We got about 2 minutes here, and I want to keep you over for a few minutes on the other side. Go back because you were one of the keys about breaking the ISIS network, Al-Qaeda, all that. Talk about the files they found, and I think it's such a great analogy. Unless you've got the right people, you don't actually know what you had. Talk to us about what happened there. And eventually we were able to, in the second, what I call the second ISIS war.
Well, this is another Devin Nunes, example of doing the right thing. And if it wasn't for Devin, there wouldn't have been pressure to get access to all those records. The CIA and the DNI did an initial evaluation, and you had terabytes worth of data. But they didn't know what they were necessarily looking at until you brought people that had been living this analytical work, that had been operationally engaged in the targeting. You wouldn't necessarily know what you were looking at. So we took phone numbers, we took code names, we took named nom de guerres, and we would analyze that data and cross-level it, and we would pull out of all of that terabyte of data. We identified operational individuals in various countries, from Morocco, Tunisia, to Yemen, Ethiopia, that we were able to distill out of all that data because we knew what we were looking for. We had background and knowledge, and we knew how to use the analytical tools to go after it. If you don't know that background and the analytical tools, you can't get to where you need to go.
Colonel Harvey, we're going to bring that up to what we're talking about now. We're going to take a short commercial break. Colonel Derek Harvey, Tiffany, Justice, Lisa, Logan, all next in the War Room.
Battleground with Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, welcome back. By the way, Derek Harvey, we don't have time tonight, but we're going to get in his story and bring him back. I call him the Lawrence of Arabia of Iraq, but it was not for Colonel Harvey and his bravery and his understanding, his knowledge. The Iraq War would have been even more disastrous than it was. It was Colonel Harvey that helped turn it around, but that's a tale for another day. As your bona fides, only got a few minutes here. Colonel Harvey, you need expertise of you and Kash on this, whether it's helping Elon Musk or helping the people helping Elon Musk. When you have a guy like Kash Patel, who's dedicated his life to his country, as you have, calling people government gangsters, I just want to make sure the story is not the Twitter executives, ultimately the Facebook executive. Yes, they're all part of it. But quite frankly, in their back and forth with each other, these people are like in high school. Let's just be blunt. You know, this is we're the greatest power in the history of the earth, right? We're the greatest power in the history of the earth. These people are like children as they talk about these things. It's like children. It's like you're at some junior high school, cafeteria. It's not sophisticated. It's not meaningful, but they're played and used by people who are very sophisticated and very cunning and have a absolute angle of attack of what they're doing. They're referred to as government gangsters. You've had to go up against this. And that's why you have a guy like a Devin Nunes, who's so, is such a patriot and so impressive. How tough is it going to be? And as you sit here today, given the fights you had on House Intel during the time when we controlled it, that's what people forget. We controlled the House and the Senate and the executive branch. Don't let that be lost on anybody. How tough is it going to be to get these investigations into the House and get them done in a meaningful way, sir?
Well, you need to have the right people and leaders of each committee that are really focused on getting that job done, like Devin Nunes was, and willing to bear the brunt of the criticism from the mainstream media, the attacks from the Biden administration. They'll be ridiculed, and then they'll throw all kinds of crazy rument at them as if it's fact, to try to besmirch their character and undermine them in order to, if not destroy them, to show others that what they're gonna go through. So there's that part of it. And then you're gonna need to understand exactly how these agencies and departments work internally, because Kash understood what we needed to ask for, where paperwork would be every step of the way. There might be 10 steps for an action to be approved, and each of those steps, different offices where paper might be that we would then subpoena or request and ask about during our depositions or our examinations during open sessions. So you need that type of knowledge in order to get at it, and you need to be really curious and pull the string. And you have to also understand that these people are going to resist us every step of the way. They will shade the truth. They won't give answers. They will give partial answers. to 20 questions. None of them will be germane, and then they'll say, we already responded. And then you'll go through a rope-a-dope for the next 4 months trying to get them back in for another deposition or to get Director Ray or someone to write a response. And again, it'll be partial and incomplete because they're hiding the truth. And they won't allow the most critical witnesses to come in that we're asking for. Those are just examples.
You agree with me that we got to lance this boil now? We cannot wait for a second Trump term. If we wait, the second Trump term will be totally it'll be a morass of this. This has to be done now. You know, we've got control of one of their apparatuses with Elon Musk, who clearly looks like is an even-handed guy in this. He's got people around him, I think, to see the crime scene that he, I think, to their degree, unfortunately bought. But is there any doubt in your mind, Colonel Harvey, that this is the moment this has to be done, no matter how tough it is, no matter how hard it is, no matter how much resistance it is, to basically save this republic? This investigation has to go where it leads, and it has to be done now, and people that do that have to have steely resolve?
I think it's not just this investigation, but it's the China part where the SEC, FBI, and DOJ are covering up criminal behavior by China in order to protect the economic interests of our globalist elite on Wall Street and our other merchants there, the venture capitalists that are financing the Chinese threat to America. So we've got lots of places we need to go, but it's like going on Guadalcanal or Iwo Jima. We have to hit the beaches, we have to fight off the beaches, we have to fight inland, and we have to go up the mountain, and we have to go into the caves and dig it out. And we're going to lose people along the way, but it's a fight that we're going to have to be committed to.
Colonel Harvey, how do people get to you on what are your coordinates on social media and your website? How do people get to your thinking, sir?
Okay, I'm Derek Harvey on Truth Social. I'm at Derek Harvey on Twitter. I don't think I think there's a number of social. I don't have it memorized. I'm sorry. I should be more prepared for that. But I'm mainly using Truth Social.
You'll get into the swing of things here in the war room. Fantastic opening salvo, Colonel Derek Harvey, an American hero. Thank you for taking time away from the family tonight to do this. Thank you, sir.
Very good.
Do I have Matthew Tyrmand? I've got Tiffany Justice and Lisa Logan, but I think we have breaking news out of Brazil, which is a story we've been covering quickly. Do I have by phone Matthew Tyrmand? Tell me what's going on. Give us an update on Brazil.
Well, as we spoke about last week, your what was the Lenin quote is exactly right. Some decades happen in a week, and now we are full-blown there. You and I talked this weekend about them not having invoked Article 142 yet. And I was a little bit wrong in my calculation. I thought it would have to come ahead. Their strategy, and I've had this now confirmed by people within government and close to the center of action within decision-making on this fraught situation, was that the certification needed to happen for the full executive coup as administered by the judicial dictatorship we've talked about in depth. That had to come full circle for them to execute it in full before they would even entertain taking any action. I don't know what shape that action takes, whether it's a letter from Bolsonaro to the military, whether it's the military acting unilaterally, but this Supreme Court, an electoral court that certified Lula today with, by the way, his supporters numbered in the dozens. Nobody showed up outside the court building where the certification happened, so that tells you a lot. And then Globo, the mainstream press, used photos of the protesters that have been out in the streets, camped out by the 10 million, as proof of Lula's support, despite no red in the crowd, no five-pointed stars, all yellow, blue, green Brazil colors. After the certification, Lula and the justices went to a very well-known communist lawyer's house to celebrate, and Moraes gave the order to arrest the head of one of the leading indigenous tribes. For any of the audience who's been watching this in depth, one of the most important series of videos that we've all seen is the leadership of the indigenous peoples. The indigenous peoples were votes taken for granted in the poor northeast that were always a stronghold for the Workers' Party and the left. Many of them voted for Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro. He's brought this country together more than any other Latin American leader in the modern era, or even in the pre-modern era. And they supported him, but they found out that they were disenfranchised, and all their votes in their precincts showed Lula votes. So they've been leading a lot of these protests, and one of the leading chiefs, I will not even be able to pronounce his name or his tribe's name, and I don't want to disrespect him because the man is an absolute hero, was just arrested under order by Marias. There's video floating. I've already retweeted. I've sent to Cameron as well of him getting roughed up. Police have guns drawn. There are also rumors, I've not yet confirmed, that shots have been fired at the crowd that are pushing back. But he's been roughed up and has been taken into custody. Very importantly, the indigenous peoples have a constitutional immunity. They have a different set of laws. It takes a very, very strong, premeditated murder level to arrest these people. They have their own sort of parallel society that is protected. It was one of the big moves of the Brazilian left for many decades to do so, working with the UN. And here they are. They've been disenfranchised, and now their leadership, who has exercised not even the constitutional rights, but the God-given rights of free assembly, protest, and fighting back against disenfranchisement with no violence, but using your voice and bringing people together. He's now been arrested, beat up, and it looks like Marias is going to now pull the Band-Aid off of mass arrests. So as you and I talk about all the time with communists, gulags are never far behind. This level of overaction could be the catalyst for something transpiring right now, and the people are very riled up. It actually starting to feel like kinetic civil war is on the cusp right there on the ground in the federal district of Brasilia.
Max Evans did an incredible video about the chief and his incredible support of President Bolsonaro and the Constitution. It's pretty extraordinary. We put it up. Matthew, how do people, particularly overnight till we come back tomorrow live, how do people follow you? Because Brazil is right on the, today was certification. Brazil is right on the cliff's edge right now. How do people follow you?
I will say that you, me, War Room, Todd at CDM Press, we had this call all year. This is the most important election battleground against global communism. We're seeing it play out in all of its, violence, non-glory. So there's a lot happening. I just want to highlight one thing. I encourage all the audience to watch and read through the transcript, because we translated into English, of Bolsonaro's speech on Friday at the president's palace. It was a marvel of important statements, including the point that we haven't talked about. How many times in Latin American history has a president seen protesters saying stay? It's always protests to remove them from office. It's the first time in Latin American history, maybe in any history, that protesters are gearing up and saying, we need you to stay to defend us. And the Supreme Court's response to that is they're taking away everyone's voice. You can follow me at Matthew Tyrmand, MatthewTyrmand. This is going to be real fluid, and you and I will be all over this. This week, everything comes to a head. We can see it happening already.
And make sure you stay on Getter, one of the platforms to get the truth out in Brazil, because we may be doing live streams later tonight, early tomorrow morning. Just make sure you stay and check out Getter. Grace and Captain Bannon will be putting stuff out. Matthew Tyrmand, thank you for the update.
Talk later, Steve. Thanks. Bye. For
the people of Brazil, we've got your back. It's just incredible what's going on down there. One of the things we argue about all the time, or we put forward the argument, is that the front of the UN, the front porch is in New York, but that's not where really things happen. Where things really happen is in Geneva, where they have the engine room. And in Geneva, it is completely and totally infiltrated by the Chinese Communist Party. You really got to look at these World Health Organization, UNESCO, all of it. I want to bring in Tiffany Justice, Moms for Liberty, that is opening up kind of a new front of kind of exposing us to things that are going on the assault on parents' rights. And when I say parents' rights, it's really the weaponization of your children against you and against your family. It's not even the fact of not even making sure these people, that the children have ultimate opportunities to learn. Tiffany, it's right now, the Democrats even understood that this is probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, burning issue in the country among the people is the situation in our public schools, the situation with children. Walk us through that before you pivot. You're going to pivot to UNESCO, which is pretty shocking in a second about what's going on. But walk me through the parental rights movement.
Well, today we saw three indictments. I think that the superintendent of Loudoun County Public Schools was indicted after it was shown that he had known about and covered up a rape that had happened on a campus there. And so when you talk about parental rights, my mind goes right back to that dad who was in the Loudoun County School Board meeting pleading for transparency with those school board members and with that superintendent. And so the time for accountability is now in American education. 2/3 of our kids are not reading on grade level. And I do want to talk about UNESCO with you because, to be honest, Barack Obama stopped making payments to UNESCO. I think it was like 2011 during the Israeli-Palestine conflict, and then UNESCO had brought in Palestine. And so we had stopped making payments. Up to that point, we had been giving about 20% of the budget of UNESCO had come from the United States of America. I think it was about $80 million. And so then Trump in 2018 took more of a formal action to remove ourselves from UNESCO. And recently, the Biden administration has said that they would like to rejoin. And it's so interesting you bring up the comment about China, because one of the reasons that they're saying that they need to rejoin UNESCO is so that we have more influence and we can have better relations with China within the United Nations. But that is a cover for what we're seeing right now. So in this time that the United States has not been involved in UNESCO, Steve, they've been doing a lot of different work. In fact, they created in 2015 the Sustainable Development Goals 2030 Agenda. And number 4 of those Sustainable Development Goals is quality education. So while people normally thought about UNESCO, created after World War II, as rebuilding libraries and meant to help in different ways of science and education and cultural, that's what it stands for, UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. Now they are actually creating the guiding principles for American education. There you see, there are the goals, and number 4 is quality education. So in wanting to learn more about this, I have made some amazing friends, and I've brought someone with me today, a fellow mom and a researcher who has done some deep dives into what UNESCO and the UN wants to do with American education. And to be clear, it is really the globalization and domination of all systems of society in the name of sustainability and equity. And so Lisa's going to tell us a little bit more about what UNESCO is working on, and every American parent should be very concerned. I don't think many American parents know right now and understand that our children's education is being hijacked by the United Nations.
Well, I didn't realize either. Lisa, take it away. Tell us what you found out, ma'am.
Right. Well, as a part of SDG 4, UNESCO wants to push a thing called global citizenship education, which will basically mean for every United States student, they're going to be learning about the Sustainable Development Goals. They want the kids to buy in to these goals and then become social justice advocates so they can accomplish their objectives by 2030. Like Tiffany said, a lot of this is happening through domination. We're seeing this happen right now through the environmental, social, and corporate governance scores being assigned to businesses. If they don't have the right sustainable environmental practices, or if they don't put a black square or a rainbow flag in their profile picture at the suggested time, their ESG score goes down in businesses, and investors and banks don't do business with them as a result of that. And my concern with global citizenship education is that we're setting up that same social credit score for our children. So these children will be told to adopt these mindsets and behaviors that makes the world more sustainable, and their data is going to be tracked. And we're already seeing this starting to happen in U.S. schools at the moment with the implementation of social emotional learning in schools. We're already seeing a lot of these sustainable development goals come through. They're teaching them about climate change. They're teaching them there are more than 2 genders, that if you're white, that you have power and privilege and you have implicit bias and you're automatically racist toward people of color. And so as this goes on and they collect the data about the kids, what's scary is UNESCO already has a plan. And if the US rejoins UNESCO, first of all, to the tune of $500 million of back pay, they already have a plan for what's called the Internet of Education. So there are people like the US Department of Education, the US Chamber of Commerce, UNESCO, and others like Walmart who are advocating for these school choice bills so they can make education a learn anytime, anywhere situation that's mostly digital. They will be pushing.
Hang on, I've only got a couple of minutes, but I want to make sure I understand this and the audience understands it. We right now are not in, Lisa, these are for you. We are right now not part of UNESCO. There's a movement for us to rejoin UNESCO, correct, and pay these back dues and all that. Is that a fact?
Yes, Blinken's actually come out and said that is their plan to rejoin UNESCO.
And so in UNESCO, you're saying that this whole global citizenship, that's the infrastructure and content they have, that if we rejoin it, that's going to be pushed into public schools at that moment, or is this already being pushed into public schools through some other nefarious methodology?
I'm glad you asked that, Steve. It's actually already being pushed. If you look at who the people are who set these standards for social emotional learning, which is CASEL, they are partnering with UNESCO and others like Karenga, which is the SEL Global Alliance, to already push this into our U.S. education system. We have changed all of our college and career readiness standards to be mostly based around social emotional learning and pushing all of these sustainable development goals.
And so in these sustainable development goals, I get about 60 seconds. They teach you how to be a global citizen, but it's not a lot of emphasis on being a citizen of the United States of America as an independent nation state, I take it?
Oh, no. They value collectivism over individualism. And in fact, they want to manipulate the children's minds through social emotional learning to get them to value that over other things. They're also going to be pushing comprehensive sexuality education. So kids as young as 5 learn about sexual behaviors, and kids as young as 9 learn about sexual stimulation and pleasure.
Lisa, how do people follow you? What's your social media? What's your website?
You can follow me on Twitter at I am Lisa Logan, and you can find a lot of information about what I'm talking about on my YouTube channel, Parents of Patriots.
Unbelievable. Great work, Lisa. Thank you so much. Tiffany Justice, you're field commander in probably the most important war we have, which is for the American family and its children. How do people get to Moms for Liberty?
Follow us at momsforliberty.org. Start a chapter. If you don't have a chapter in your area, we really need you to start one. We need to get the word out here. We are at a moment in America where we must reach every single parent and let them know what is happening in our public schools. You can follow me on Twitter at @4 Tiffany Justice or at moms4 Liberty. Thanks, Steve, for letting us come on to talk about this important information.
The American family and the children of America thank Lisa Logan and Tiffany Justice and everybody associated for Moms for Liberty, donors, activists, the workers, administrators, everybody. Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to get more about Loudoun County tomorrow also. Back here at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning in the War Room. Make sure you go to my Getter account. We may be going up live tonight on Brazil. See you back here tomorrow at 10.